Unfortunately, the way we had to start off with January was a really terrible horror video game film adaptation, so it was kind of relieving to see that a week later we would get a decent horror video game to film adaptation. I'm just your friendly neighborhood horror freak. Hey, what's going on, you guys? Michael Entity here, your friendly neighborhood horror freak, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the brand new film Iron Lung. This film was written, directed, produced, starred, and edited by Markiplier. And in case you guys don't know who Markiplier is, have you really been living under a rock? Seriously? But for real, in case you guys have never heard of Markiplier, he's one of the biggest YouTubers in history. Now, growing up in middle school, I was a huge Markiplier fan. I remember watching him when he was relatively known, but he wasn't as big as he is now. Seeing how he has evolved from back in the day to how he is now, it is so freaking inspiring, and I have always been a big fan of his. He is one of the few YouTubers of, recent years that hasn't really had, a cancel moment. Besides maybe he wanted to start an OnlyFans, which, did I sign up for that? But yeah, I was always a big Markiplier fan, and when I found out that he was actually making a movie, I was like, okay, the traction for when it comes to YouTubers making films hasn't always been great, but there have been some decent exceptions. And then later on, I would learn that it was actually based off of a video game that he actually played a couple years ago and loved it so much that he actually reached out to the person who created it, asking for his permission to make this film, and even funded the movie himself. Apparently, he funded about $3 million of his own money to make this film. And just obviously hearing that, you can tell Markiplier had such a huge passion for this adaptation because it was something that really meant a lot to him, and that is one of the biggest positives you can get. And as far as the actual film itself, I will say, there really is a lot to like about this film. First off, Markiplier, I think he did a hell of a job directing this film, and obviously, as you guys know, he is the lead star of this film, and he actually surprised me with his acting. I actually thought he gave a very compelling performance, and coming from somebody who has never had acting experience whatsoever, I actually thought he nailed it, and honestly, I would really like to see him in more films if he decides to do any more, or if this was just a one-time passion project where he just wanted to be one and done. But after seeing this film, you can definitely see something there. There is definitely some potential. It's the same way I felt about M. Night Shyamalan's daughter, which, forgive me, I don't remember her name, but she directed The Watchers that came out. I think it was last year, or I think it might have been 2024. I don't remember. And even though I didn't necessarily love that film, there was a lot about that film that really did show the potential and talent that she had as a director. And the same goes for Markiplier in this film, because I do think he does a very well job at directing this film. I also really like the concept of the film, the idea that something happened which caused a lot of the planets to kind of disappear, and now there's this moon that has a blood ocean that might have some creatures in there that they're trying to see if they can communicate with them or do some tests on them. I think it's a really cool concept because I was going into this movie not even really knowing what the game was even about. I just read the synopsis and thought, okay, it seems interesting enough. After the film, I actually did look at some of the game footage, and it doesn't really look like the type of game that I would be interested in playing, but again, I do think the concept of this is actually really, really cool. I also think Markiplier does a really good job at using everything at his disposal in this little submarine, because 99% of the movie takes place in this little submarine, and I do think that the set design was really cool. I think this movie was also very well filmed. You really do feel the isolation, which is a genre that I love. I love isolation horror films because there's just something so unnerving and claustrophobic. The idea that characters don't really have a whole lot of room to move around. A perfect example, of course, would be Alien, but the difference with Alien is that they're in a spaceship, so there definitely is a lot more room. Even though they're kind of stuck there, there at least is some movement going around. But in this film, it is a tiny submarine. Probably smaller than my bedroom. So it really does add some very great tension and anxiety to the point where it's like, holy shit, like I would not want to be in that submarine, nonetheless be welded in the fucking submarine. Like, whoa. I also think the score for this movie was also very well composed. It was helmed by somebody named Andrew Holschult. I believe that's how you say his name. If I said that wrong, I do apologize. Apparently, this is the first time he's ever scored for a film. He's mostly been known for doing a lot of video game scores, but I really like the music in this movie. It really does add to the tension and just how uncomfortable it really feels being stuck in this really small, rusty submarine. Of course, I gotta say this again. There is really a lot to like about this movie, but unfortunately, it does not shadow a lot of the problems that this movie has, which I will get this one out of the way. This movie's pacing can be rough sometimes. The movie is like 2 hours and 10 minutes, including credits. But man, there are times in this movie where I was checking my phone constantly because there are lots of times where nothing happens, which again, I'm kind of circling back where I do like the idea that it does feel like real time. Like it's almost kind of like you're in the submarine with Markiplier's character. But there were just so many times where I'm like, dude, where are we going with this? Because it really does become repetitive. You know, something happens, Markiplier's character passes out, he's looking at a map, he's having to take pictures, and after a while, it did get really repetitive, and I was just kind of waiting to see where the story was going to progress because this movie is very ambiguous. You don't really get a whole lot of answers, and by the end of the film, you don't really know exactly what the purpose is. All you really understand is Markiplier's character is a convict. He has the opportunity to get a lighter sentence if he goes in this submarine to get a sample in this blood ocean that scientists are trying to study. And that's really all you get. Other than that, there really isn't a clear motivation that you really understand. There are some flashbacks that we get throughout the film where we get to learn a little bit more about Markiplier's character Simon on exactly why he went to prison, but I really do think that those flashbacks were very unnecessary because they never explain anything. There are a couple times where Markiplier's character explains what happened, but it's just left very ambiguous to the point where you don't really understand it. And I just kind of felt confused at that point. And I know there might be some people that say, well, you didn't play the video game, so you don't understand. But I personally don't think that's fair because I feel like an adaptation, whether it's from a video game, a TV series that was turned into a movie, or a book, they should be able to tell a cohesive story for non-fans to be able to enjoy, but then also give the fan service to the hardcore fans of this source material. And unfortunately, Iron Lung doesn't really do that. Throughout the entire film, I honestly kind of just found myself scratching my head a lot of times. Even though I was intrigued and I was interested to see what was going to happen next, I still had no idea what the hell was even going on. Like I said, it does get repetitive after a while. I really do think with another rewrite and having this movie be maybe 90 minutes, this could have actually just been a really well-made independent horror film. And look, I'm not saying that this movie is bad because of the time length. I just really do think that there was a lot that they could have cut with this movie and you would have not missed a thing. Overall, though, I still was very impressed with this film. I'm very excited to see what Markiplier does next, if he decides to make a new film or if this is just a one and done. But if he ends up directing another horror film down the line or just another film in general, I will be there day one and I will support it. So guys, those are my thoughts on Iron Lung. Did you guys see this movie? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you think Markiplier should continue to make films or should he just stick to what he does best? Let me know down in the comments below and I will see you guys next time in your neighborhood. I'm just your friendly neighborhood horror